All right. Well, good afternoon or morning or evening, whenever it is you are watching this session. Hello. Welcome to Teams for the Win. My name is Carmen Scoggins, and I'm a Spanish teacher in the Appalachian Mountains in beautiful Boone, North Carolina. Here is my information. You can find me on Twitter, and here's my email if you would like to follow up with me about this quick little session I'm going to do with you called Teams for the Win. Yes, so this session is going to help you as teachers with some strategies to help your students level up their language and maybe think about how to connect their language to the real world, how to link them to other opportunities. So here we go. First of all, I need to give you a little bit of background. This is my 28th year in the classroom, and wow, I can't believe that much time has passed, but it has been such a journey. I taught elementary and middle school Spanish for 9 years. I've been at the high school level for now 19 years. I'm also an adjunct methodology instructor at our local university, Appalachian State. I've also been there for 19 years teaching Spanish and methods. So I feel like I've had a blessed career. I've gotten to do so many different things. So I came up with this concept a long time ago of using teams, and this is not like a novel idea. We all have students work in groups and whatnot, but this is kind of a deliberate practice. So hopefully you'll get something out of this that might help you think about how to help your language learners level up their language. Here's just a quick little intro that I want to share with you. All right, welcome to Teams for the Win. Yes. So I hope you can already see that I try to really create an atmosphere of teamwork, of collaboration, and we just have a lot of fun doing it. All of this was shot pre-COVID, so it just makes my heart a little sad now to know that we are teaching and learning in such different times, but that's okay. Here we go. Our goals for our time together are: I can discuss the differences between a group and a team. Maybe you've never thought about that before. I can highlight several benefits of students working in teams, and I can explain how working in teams connects to the real world. And there's that link piece, hopefully. Okay, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's why we're here, right? So take about 20 seconds or pause the video and think about, in your brain, what's the difference between a group and a team? How do you differentiate those two? Have any thoughts? I know this is weird because I'm not able to talk to you, but all right. So a group is more of an independent set of people who work together, maybe have common interests, maybe not. But a team is a scenario where you work interdependently, you've got a shared responsibility, a shared goal, you're creating common experiences. And I think for me lately, ever since COVID hit and kids were learning outside in their respective homes, and then finally came back to school, I'm just trying to get them to create and have common experiences so that they can connect to something and feel special. They hold each other mutually accountable for different things, and they maximize each other's strengths while minimizing their weaknesses. So hopefully you'll see some of that come through in the presentation. In North Carolina, we have a professional development plan that we have to follow, that we fill out at the beginning of the year. And then when our principals come in to observe us, they are looking at certain standards to rate us on. And one of our standards is teachers help students work in teams and develop leadership qualities. And I find that I'm accomplished in a lot of things, but I like to try to do better. So I was thinking of how I could move myself to distinguished. And distinguished just fosters the development of student leadership and teamwork skills to be used beyond the classroom. So that's not my premise for creating the whole team concept, but it definitely has helped when I'm thinking about my own teacher goals. And, we're constantly having our students think about 21st century skills. Of course, we have the actual world readiness standards on the right-hand side and the 21st century skills, where so many people call these skills on the left-hand side, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, as soft skills. And Trevor Muir says, hey, stop calling them soft skills, because these are essential skills, right? When students leave me at the high school level or at the college level, they're going out into the workforce. They are working on some kind of collaborative team, perhaps. Maybe they're developing another vaccine, who knows? But there's a lot of stuff that we do that happens in the world language classroom that makes this easy for us, I think. Communication, for one, right? We're one of the only groups in the school that works with interpersonal and interpretive and presentational communication. Most students are sitting in classes just getting and listening, and we are having our students interact all the time. So we know the five C's, the world readiness standards, and again, these live in our classrooms, which is, we're already head and shoulders above the other disciplines that are happening in our schools. And working in teams actually facilitates these critical skills, I find. When I set these teams up with my students, all these things are magically happening, but they're also deliberate on my part. And sometimes the students don't even realize that they're doing these things, but obviously they have to collaborate. They have to think critically when they're doing a task together. And then, of course, again, the 5 C's are going to live with everything that we do already. So a few years ago, many years ago, actually, I was teaching a late class at the university. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, such a hard time of day. There were about 35 students. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get around to everybody and give them the time they deserve. So I had this idea to create these, what I called back then, I-CELLS, C-E-L-L-S. And that was another acronym, and it worked well and everything was fine. And then I abandoned it for like 10 years. And when I began to have the level 3 students at my school, I teach Spanish 1 and 3. The classes were starting to get big again, like 30 students, which is awesome for our program. But again, I was worried about meeting the individual needs of the students. So I came up with this acronym, and I'm a Spanish teacher, and you all know equipos means teams. So it stands for Engaging and Quality Understandings and Interaction with People and Opportunities in Spanish. I like acronyms and I like making things up for them. So this is actually a bulletin board I have hanging on my wall. And a lot of my students are athletes and they understand the concept of being on a team. And I thought, why don't I transfer that to the classroom? So hopefully, again, some of the things I discuss with you will make you think about how you can help your students level up their language and what you can do, because that's the piece of this that the conference is all about. This is the path to proficiency that I have as a bulletin board on my wall. Years ago, Nicole Naditz had made an actual Teacher of the Year. Yay. She had made something similar for one of her syllabi. And I was like, wow, this is a great idea. So I took it and kind of twisted it around a little bit. And these are things that my students and I see together each day. I ask them how they think they learn. We set goals, and I'll talk about that in a minute. They have to participate. They monitor their own progress. They guide, they help each other, they practice every day just like any good athlete would. They reflect, and then they are encouraged to, of course, use the language outside the classroom. So again, this is at the forefront of our minds, and our students, as teammates, they help each other, they hold each other accountable for these steps as well. So if you're thinking about this as sort of like a player's handbook, now I've never coached anything in my life, but that's okay because I'm still a coach in the classroom. You've got different parts of setting up a team and thinking about the big game and preseason, how Before, if I were coaching, soccer, let's say, before the season even starts, I am trying to get to know who's on my team. I am looking at rosters. I'm looking at where they came from. I'm looking at background information, what their successes were in other scenarios. And as soon as the team gets put together, I'm automatically starting to get to know them. I identify my own goals. What are we going to do with our time together? I think backward design all the time. What's the end goal? What are my I can statements? What are my learning targets? How am I going to assess students? And then how am I going to plan along the way? I am going to collaborate with others. So this is all preseason for me. Okay. I make game plans and I think about how to turn learning experiences into real world tasks for students. So this is a lot of background too for me. But then the team is together and we are ready, and we're ready to practice. Everybody has to practice. If they're going to get better at anything, you're going to have to practice over and over again, right? So we have a plan, and this is what we might call from our point of view, the lesson plan. We know that some students might take a little longer to acquire certain knowledge than others. So I apply John Hattie's feedback loop, where if I assess for a certain learning target and kids aren't still getting it, we might loop back around. And that's just like running a drill in a practice on the football field or the soccer field or the basketball court. What is a skill that seems to be lacking a little bit? I offer my players choice. And by that, I mean, do I give them choice boards or opportunities to level up their own language? If they don't do well the first time, can they repeat something? Can they repeat a drill? Of course they can. I assess them formatively all the time. Again, these are things that you're doing with your students every single day, and I just put it into these words. I recycle practices that are working well, things and experiences that go well, then I might put them back in with another theme or something, just to see if kids can remember how we did it the first time. And then I even have my teammates, my students, plot their own progress. It's just like any other thing you do, you have to reflect a lot, and I'll talk about that in just a minute too. So we have preseason, what I do to get ready for the season, then how I help my teammates and help my students in their teams, and we'll get to the team part in just a minute. Then there's the big game, right? Yes, it's time. Of course, this would be where the assessment piece comes in, and I'm sure most of you are using integrated performance assessment. So here are the modes of communication: some kind of project-based learning or some kind of summative assessment. How is your team doing? Now, when I say team, that doesn't mean I assess them as a team all the time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But again, we'll get into the team dynamics in just a minute. I'm just giving you the background of how I see myself in the classroom and what my responsibilities are as the coach. Finally, I walk around my classroom a lot, even with my mask on, and I watch kids who are athletes. Like I have a lot of football players right now since it's the fall, and when we have any downtime, what's on their screen? The footage from the game last Friday night. They are watching their own progress. They are watching the plays. They're watching the other team. They're thinking about how they fit into everything. So I said, why not go to the videotape, right? That's the famous line, go to the video. So when we do things, when we record ourselves, when I have my students using the language in conversations that are recorded, or when they do individual things that's like presentational speaking or writing, we quote, go to the video. If they record audio, I make them watch themselves. I make them listen to themselves all the time, which they love. They don't love it, but they're so used to having to do it for sports. They understand why I make them do it. And so that's another connection I make with them. So we might have to regroup. We might have to make a new plan. But again, I'm the coach. So we go through all these things together. We've got the preseason, the practices, the big game, and then we go to the locker room and reflect a little bit. So having said all that, let's talk about how this team concept works. Okay, the strength of the team is the individual member. The strength of each member is the team, okay? And I'm gonna break this down. These images are kind of small, but I'm gonna go through them individually. So here's the concept. Again, I mentioned that I created teams so I could make more manageable learning pods of people, I guess. If you think about the way we acquire language and the way we use language, it's very rare that I'm gonna be in front of 30 people having to use my second, third, or fourth language. But that's what we're asking kids to do in the classroom all the time. So my idea was, how do people naturally acquire language? Well, they sit at a cafe, a small group of friends. They might, do something with social media, but it's never with a big group of people. It's always with a smaller, intimate group of people. So that's how this brainchild happened. So my students work in teams, and we'll talk about the different sizes in a minute. And it's basically them creating their own little language community so that they can feel comfortable making mistakes. We ask them to take risks all the time. It's easier to take those risks when you're with 2 or 3 other people than it is in front of the whole class. Typically, if one teammate doesn't know what's happening or has to be out or whatever, the other teammates can pull them back in and give them the support that I just don't have time to do. This actually takes a lot off my plate. Once it's set up and rolling, then it's just, it runs itself, okay? So this was the concept. Again, here's the acronym, and equipos are teams of language students who learn together as a small community. That's why we're here. We're trying to get as much experience from each other. And again, I'm all about creating those shared experiences for students. When we're face-to-face, we create team folders, old school, hands-on folders where we can put things, or if we're reading short stories or whatever, I can just give them copies and they can keep everything in their folder. When we were online, it was a little trickier to handle the team scenario, but we made it work, of course, all virtually. And I'm just proud that my students are open-minded. I always ask my level 3s. I only do this with level 3, by the way, not with my novice kids, just because they are having to work on other things. By the time my kids get to level 3, they're novice high, intermediate low. They're in that weird range where language gets tricky. And so I think having that constant support is very beneficial. By the way, they stay with their same team the entire semester. Not that we might mix the teams up for different activities, but they are with that same team the whole time, so that they do really form bonds and make new friends even, and feel comfortable doing well and making mistakes at the same time. So I am the department chair at my school, and I serve as a facilitator for a professional learning team. And my administrative team, we have to create agendas every week, and we had to set team norms, like keep student learning a priority, there are no bad ideas, etc. If we get off track, our code word is Chihuahua. So I thought, why not have my learning teams, so my language learning teams, create their own norms. I've since changed the title, not from work expectations, that sounds too ominous, but to team norms. And so we use the acronym EQUIPO, and they internalize what that's going to mean for their team. So equity, being honest and acting in good faith, being a democratic group, all putting in effort. This is serious. They write these themselves, okay? Now these, we're talking like 15 to 18-year-olds. That's pretty important. Quiet, let all members have a voice. So even though it says quiet, what it means is don't someone dominate. And they're already seeing how this is going to work. There's that real world skill of collaboration, okay? And again, not every single thing is done in the target language as we would love, but enough is done in the target language to get the Spanish we need, but enough is also happening in our first language, which for my students is English, to build those outside skills that they're going to need later in life, okay? Unite, working together, incorporating the ideas of all the group members. You can't teach this stuff, right? This is just coming out of them. Interpersonal, talking every problem and activity out with each other. I love this. Everyone has a voice and is included. Participate. Everyone's working together. Staying on task. That's important. Organizing, staying organized. There's some of those executive functioning skills that we forget that students so desperately need, especially in this day and age when learning has been interrupted the way it has with unfortunately the virus. And smile, keeping a positive attitude, believing in each other and ourselves, and being kind. So again, these are big things that are happening in the classroom without me having to say, hey, be nice to so-and-so. It's just part of the culture that I'm trying to create, so that the language can happen in a non-threatening way, and so that we can all be very supportive of one another. Okay, so very often we set weekly language goals that are individual So that's what this was a while ago, but my personal proficiency goal is to recall skills I learned during the first 2 levels. This was at the very beginning of the semester. We also set a team goal to be able to communicate about details about ourselves in Spanish to each other. So they already for the week have some kind of collective goal that they want to work towards. And this reminds them, we reflect on those goals every Friday. We set them every Monday. We reflect on them every Friday just to hold them accountable. And they can say, yes, we met our team goal. I didn't reach my individual goal, but I met my team goal, and this is what we did to achieve that. So it works very well. Again, if you can get a young person to verbalize what they're learning, how they're learning, you're golden, because that means they're really internalizing things. So this is my classroom. You can see behind me, I have some stuff, yay, the World Readiness Standards and the Proficiency Scale. And so my desks are triangular, which is cool. Again, with COVID, when we came back to school last fall, everything was really spread out, of course. Things are a little bit more back to normal. I shouldn't say back to normal, but you know what I mean? We're all masked, but I'm back to the pod scenario. So this really facilitates things for teams. It's easy. If there's a group of 2, if there's a group of whatever, of 5 or 4, then we can easily move the desks around. And I've had all kinds of different numbers of teams. Let me go back to this one. The current semester we're in now, I have mostly groups of 3, which work really well. 3 is like a golden number. I have a group of 4, and that's 2 groups of 4, and that's getting a little bit large, but it's still okay. It's still okay. I've had a group of 2 before, which was kind of too small, and I've had a group of 5 before, which was kind of too big. So that 3 to 4 range kind of works well, I think, for students, so that no one gets left out. I asked them what their shared goal was, and these are some that they said. Our goal is to support each other as we grow, to improve our conversation skills, and to we strive to better ourselves and our Spanish every day while nurturing each other's emotional and academic needs. Yeah, they were laying it on pretty thick. But again, they do have a shared goal. I think when they see the importance of what I'm trying to accomplish. And everyone, like, I've literally never had, as long as I've been doing this, I've never had anyone who's not bought into this. They really like the concept. I had a kid a few semesters ago, pre-COVID again, who was on the autism spectrum, and his social skills were a little awkward, and that was one of his goals with his caseworker, to work on his social skills. So he ended up being on a team, and my students get to choose their teams. So he ended up being on a team with some very, very popular boys in the school. I'm talking like I would never have matched them up ever. And it just happened, and it worked. I can't even tell you what I got to see. I saw this quiet, shy kid become the leader of that team. He guided them, he led them. To be fair, his Spanish skills were stronger than theirs. And so the pride he had, and the amount that he grew in his social skills and being able to communicate stuff to his teammates was just beautiful to watch. So those are, again, some of the benefits of this. Of course, the Spanish was there, and that's what I want, but there's so many other things that happen while the team concept is going on. So what a typical day might look like. Again, this was a few semesters ago, but it's still relevant. So class begins, we check in with each other, they talk it out with how's it going in the target language, and we probably do some kind of speaking activity to warm ourselves up. They've been in chemistry or calculus or English or whatever, and so now I'm helping them transition. I might give some direct instruction, or a team might investigate something new. Typically, we do some kind of team activity. Teams might switch activities, or they might switch and rotate among other teams and do different things where they're mixed up and have to go back and report to their team. There are lots of different ways I do this. We don't do every single activity with our team because I have to hold them accountable in some ways for their own growth. But even if we don't do a team activity, their team is still there to support them if they need the support. And then we might reflect on our time together, and then we say goodbye. A couple of the different activities we've done. We interview each other. So we interview someone who's not on our team, and I have a set of questions. If they want to add any questions, they can. They do the interviews in the target language, of course. Then they have to turn that into a biography. So interpersonal speaking becomes presentational writing. But before they're allowed to submit anything like this, they must team peer edit. So someone on their team, hopefully the whole team, has looked at their stuff before it gets submitted. So that, again, this might be selfish, but by the time it gets to me, it's a lot easier to assess, because a lot of the mistakes, the tiny little mistakes, have been taken out because their teammates have caught them. So it takes a little bit of the pressure off me. Sneaky. We also do as much speaking as possible, of course. This particular task, again, it's from a couple years ago, but I still do something similar today. We do a unit on the past and history in Spain. And so they have this beautiful, authentic resource, and they investigate where they could go in Madrid and whatever. Then they write about it as if they took the trip there. So again, that's presentational writing in the past tenses and all that good stuff. They're working as a team on this. Then they record their presentational writing on Flipgrid, so it's a little bit more polished. Then other teams have to watch their videos and listen, and so that becomes interpretive listening, and they have to ask the team follow-up questions. So again, it's a growth process, and it gets, you know, there's a lot of scaffolding at first. They have a lot of support. They get to rewrite, they get to practice, and then the interpersonal speaking comes in when they ask each other questions. So it's good, but they've already built up a little bit of confidence in what they're going to say. I do a lot of logic puzzles and things where they have to use critical thinking skills. And this, we try to stay in the target language, but again, they're working with their small team, so it's a little bit more comfortable, and they have to solve all these clues. It's really fun. I've even created a couple of escape rooms for these kids. A little bit time consuming, but certainly worth all the effort, because they love it and they have each other. And I use this particular escape room as a final assessment for this unit. And they love it because they're working together. They're learning a lot. They're showing me what they've learned throughout the unit. They get frustrated. They get heated. They get so emotional when they can't figure something out. Like this, obviously, if you speak Spanish, you know that the capital of Spain is not listed on this. So there was trivia all in the hall, and what they have to realize is that the answer is on another card, and it's all going to end up making some kind of code they're going to need for the escape room. But until they figure that out, man, the frustration level's high. But I love watching them work together to come up with what they think the solution is. Okay, the truth. The good, the bad, the reality, right? Here's my team of two, which this got interesting at one point because they started not getting along because one person thought the other person was doing all the work, and they both talked to me individually. And then I somehow, before I knew it, it just got worked out. I didn't have to say too much. I would just monitor what was happening, and they ended up being completely fine, but they handled it on their own. Again, there's that real world skill. They're doing activities that are very structured, where they're speaking a lot. This is kids, again, this is two teams together, so they get to learn about their teammates. This is at the beginning of the semester, and as well as another team, but they're using M&Ms for the different colors to talk about different aspects and ask follow-up questions, all in the language. But again, it's a smaller group feel. These girls over here, just a dream team, literally, just such hardworking team, collaborating. This is accountability. I call this accountability because I saw these little papers all over my floor one day, and I was like, what, guys, come on, keep my room neat, keep our space tidy. And they were like, no, we need those, because when people in our team are getting off task, we just slide the paper onto their desk and say, muy bien, or shh, get back on task. So I was like, all right, you do you. Again, working together collaboratively. I call these los tres amigos, the three friends. They were just, they were inseparable. And then celebrating everything in your team. Just, you know, this age group loves competition too. So it works out really well when you can get them to compete a little bit. Again, this is the reality today, okay? This is when we were learning online. It was a little bit more challenging to maintain teams, but we still made it work. This was us when we came back in the fall. Our school was so big, we split 2 days a week. One cohort came, the other 2 days a week, a different cohort came. So this cohort happened to be really small. As you can see, just 7 kids. So we were two different teams, but when they came back, we became just one team. And honestly, this group of kids became a family, and it was just so special to watch. And this is a picture from my semester right now for girls. Again, we're all masked, but that's our reality, and it's working out beautifully. A couple of students have mentioned a couple things. I'm just going to play a few. This is out of the mouth of babes. Okay, their comments about what they think about working in teams.
Okay, so for the teams, I think it's different from just working in a group like in another class. Personally, for me, in Spanish 2, we worked a lot individually, but then checked it in our group, and it's more collaborative in your class.
Yeah, in this class, like we hold each other accountable and like we're responsible not only for our own individual work and growth, but for our table's growth.
Yeah.
And so that just like makes you want to work with your team even more because you are held accountable.
Okay, so I love what she says. You know, we have to hold each other accountable. Let's see what Riley has to say.
Okay, I really like working in teams in Spanish class because I feel like being around my peers, it helps me get really comfortable practicing the language, and I'm not afraid to make mistakes, and it's really nice to have them as resources when I have questions and stuff, because in big classes it's kind of hard for one-on-one time with the teacher at every like given second. And I also really like that Ms. Goggins keeps class fun with games. It keeps it really low pressure and lets us like make mistakes comfortably. So if we mess up on an assignment and don't have the perfect verb conjugation, she lets us go back and fix them so that we learn the right way to do it and don't just like live with our mistakes and let them bad grades.
Okay, right. So that's the idea. The idea is that by the time they submit something, it's in a little better shape than if they had all been working individually. Again, there's a shared goal. They're moving in the same direction. They're all at about the same proficiency level, which also helps this concept, I think. But inevitably, somebody in the team is going to know something that somebody else isn't going to know, and so that's just how they support each other without me having to answer, 30 individual questions. I can just facilitate. Once the team is set, I just walk around. It's awesome. I mean, it couldn't be a more beautiful experience. Again, I mentioned that I think reflection, personal reflection, and also student reflection, team reflection is key. So my students do reflections in a lot of different ways. I have them create some kind of team portfolio at the end of the semester where they have to choose pieces that they've done with their team and tell me how it helped them grow in their language proficiency, what they still want to work on, what they are still struggling with, benefits of the team, things like that. That happens here. Also, I do an individual reflection where they can give me their own opinions about how the team concept worked for them. Did it not work? Do they have any suggestions for me? We also reflect on Flipgrid as a team. We reflect throughout the semester. I just had my students reflect. We came to the end of our first unit, and I asked them to give me some feedback. I said, put the camera on. They can do this in English again. I want to hear them. I said, look at that camera like you're talking directly to me and give me feedback. And I'm going to tell you this, teachers, if you ask students to reflect, you better be ready to listen because they're going to tell you exactly how they feel. But it helps me as the quote coach know if I'm moving them in the right direction or if they need more support or if things aren't going well, I can intervene. But inevitably, kids just like having the support network. And I've watched friendships absolutely bloom, from the team concept. So kids that rarely hung out or didn't know each other, they're like together now all the time. And I'm not going to say I'm responsible for that, but it really has helped them. Okay, so a couple of little things. As the coach, I've never coached anything in my life. I've never done a lot of sports. I was a dancer, so I didn't really have time to participate in sports. So I have to hold my own self accountable, and my own reflections are these. I never teach these teams how to be a team. So do I need to do that, or do I need to let it happen organically, and just let whatever happens kind of come out of this experience for them? I never gave them strategies to use. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't give them strategies as to how to use the language if they get stuck, or connector words or sentence starters. That's not the kind of support I'm talking about. I'm talking about I never taught them how to work well with other people. again, it's just stuff that they get to figure out on their own, I guess. And then I also reflect on, what kind of coach am I? Am I being supportive? Am I one of those coaches that's just so hard on them all the time? I don't think that I am, but I step back a lot and say, is this working? What can I do differently? Is the teamwork concept, is it where I want it to be? Is it what I was hoping for? So I do a lot of reflecting with this team concept too. Okay. So again, okay, this is it. If I start crying, I'm really sorry, all right? So I have to set this up for you, because this was probably the most beautiful team experience I've ever seen. Now, you can see this is four guys. They're all seniors. This was fourth block, end of the day. We're tired. Everybody's tired. I have a subscription to Quizlet. Back then, this was a few years ago, we played Quizlet live. It was lit. You know, it was the thing to do back then. And so I paid so that the teams could work with their own teammates, okay? So this team, I don't know why they called themselves the Bolts, but they did. And they never won. I mean, they would get so close all the time, but they would just never win. And one day, I could feel this kind of weird like vibe in the room. And I was like, what's going on? And I looked at one girl, this is pre-COVID, that's why we're not wearing masks. I looked at one girl and she looked me right in the eye and she just kind of winked at me. And I was like, something's going on. Well, I'm going to show you.
Oh my God. What is oh my God. Wait, why are we so bad? Ball!
Okay, so so what was happening is the other teams recognized that this team had never had the chance to win, and they weren't pulling back too much because they still were practicing and still trying to win, but they were also letting this team have their moment in the sun. And I get emotional. I'm going to cry now every time I think about it, because teachers, that's the kind of thing you cannot plan for. I couldn't teach that to them. I didn't have to teach it to them. The other groups were being empathetic. The other teams were like, you know, we always win. Now, not that we're just going to give up and let this team win, but we want everyone in here to feel a part of something. Again, there's those shared experiences. And so the Bolts finally won, and it was so exciting to watch. And I happened to get it on video. So, because I could see what was happening. The other teams were just so precious. And I was like, okay, something big is about to happen. So again, this is literally how teams work. This is how they should work. This is how you create that special time with students. We know that life has been challenging for everyone, social emotional learning for kids, but also for us. Watching things like this happen is just so special. And I think it's something that everyone needs right now. So celebrate everything. Coming together is the beginning. Staying together is progress, and working together is success. So I will leave you with this, okay? Again, my name is Carmen Scoggins. You can reach me. This was a super fast presentation. I have so much more I can tell you, but you can reach out to me at carmenscoggins@gmail.com. I just challenge you to consider using Teams with your students, because for me, it has been a really nice thing to watch how kids learn to work together. They work through their frustrations. They collaborate, they support, they help. Back in the fall, a couple of my students were ill, and the team just checked on them constantly. How can we help you? How can we help you stay on top of things? And it just really worked well. Not to mention the benefits of the language that are coming out of it. I know that's what this session's about, how to leverage and level up. But hopefully you can see by this environment I've helped try to create that the language comes because they feel support, because they feel comfortable, and they're not afraid to take risks and make mistakes. They have someone and they know has their back. And you need that in life as well as in the classroom. So again, I challenge you, create teams if it feels right for you. Be a good coach and celebrate your victories and learn together, and just wait for the Gatorade to be thrown on your head. And I thank you for your time. Enjoy the conference and go team. Yay.